final battle, finals. Very quickly before we get too far into this week's review, because I know this isn't everyone's favourite feature, but a big thank you for everyone who liked and subscribed from last week's video. It really means a lot to me to see all these likes and subscriptions and all the kind of great support I've been getting from you wonderful people from the past few weeks or so, especially bearing in mind I've not really been having a terribly good go of things mentally speaking recently. So if you would be so kind, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators these days. It doesn't have to be me. It could be anyone you want. Give the next video that you watch a like. It would be really nice for them and it would help them out immensely. These days you got to feed the algorithm, because that's just the way that YouTube wants to run. Anyway, thank you very much for being with me, and on to the review. Okay, so two bits of good news to kick us off with. Good news number one is that the spoiler I saw from last week wasn't in this week's episode, so this week's episode wasn't spoilt for me after all. Hooray! And good news bit number two is that this week's episode had almost everything I wanted the past season to have here and now. I mean, it's kind of remarkable that many of the elements that I've been missing from this year's series and have actually appeared right here, right now. Sure, maybe not quite as extensively as I would have wanted to, and there's a few issues here and there, but by and large, this was a hell of a way to send off this arc. Maybe there's going to be another episode next week that's going to wrap things up a lot more neatly, but for here and now, it works, and it works really well. One of the major things I'm happy to actually end up seeing is the fact we actually got to see more of Shinzo and Iwasawa's master-student relationship actually forming. And by starting to see it, I mean, this is the first time we actually saw it. We've had little hints of it in previous episodes, and in those previous episodes, I was just sitting here thinking to myself, you know, a flashback would go really, really well with this scene. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that really likes flashbacks all that much, but, you know, this is a moment where I wouldn't mind it, because this is kind of a bit of a big twist. This week we got it. It was only the one scene and it was fairly short, but you know, it did the job and it did the service very well. I'm interested to see where their relationship ends up growing and developing from here. I'd like to see more of it, but I'm not entirely sure whether we are going to see that or not, because I don't know if Shinzo's now going to join in one of the hero classes, or if he's going to be doing the hero stuff with Iwasawa part-time. I really don't know, but I'm interested to see where it's all going to grow and develop. It's a nice little element, a nice little rival for Midoriya right now, someone that actually sees him more of an equal and someone that actually can measure themselves up against. And speaking of Midoriya, I am glad that this new weird tentacle power thing of his isn't the be-all and end-all. This isn't the next great power. This isn't the thing that won the whole fight for him. I'm glad to see that, because I was worried, as I mentioned in last week's episode, that this was going to end up being the case. That this was going to be his own Kaioken, or his new Super Saiyan, or Super Saiyan 2, or whatever. This was going to be the thing that was going to win him this arc, and then be something that's never used again, or alternatively, it's used a little bit too much. And that wasn't the case, as is typical with this TV show, is that all kind of superpowers come with some kind of downside to them, and for him here and now it's that it hurts like hell for him to actually use it, which I'm perfectly fine with. Alright, I'm not actually fine with a teenager being in constant pain trying to do something physically, but I am fine with a superhero not being able to use this new superpower that could be a little bit OP all the time. It's a great little twist and a great little development which I'm really happy to see more of. I know that probably by the end of this season, this is going to be the thing that might well save the day for him, defeat the big bad that we might end up seeing at the end of this season, but at that point, it's warranted, because between now and then, we're probably going to see him developing that power and using it a little bit more. I imagine that next week, we're probably going to have a little bit more of an epilogue to this story arc, as well as starting up for the next one, but we'll soon see about that. If we are going to talk about stuff that I didn't like, we'll continue on with that little note. One of the things that I didn't like is the fact that it kind of all seemed to tie up a little bit too neatly for my liking. Everything just seemed to stop with everyone effectively just shaking hands and saying, "Good fight, bro," which I know at the end of the day this is just a training exercise, so you can't really have much in the way of drama and animosity between these characters, but it didn't really feel as though this whole story arc has really had the same kind of big emotional crescendo moment as some of the previous arcs have done. Though granted, given the quality of some of the previous arcs we've had, particularly the Gentle Criminal arc, it's kind of a very high bar has been set. As I said at the time, as I was saying now, the Gentle Criminal arc is probably one of the best things I've seen in television in quite a long time, particularly within the whole superhero genre, so, you know, it's kind of a bit of a hard thing to overcome that with just what ultimately translates to a tournament arc. Still, it was a great thing to end up seeing, even if I do feel it was a little bit too neatly tied up. Though I do say, as I've said multiple times previously, I do think we probably are going to end up getting an epilogue for this week's story arc, probably next week. And I do know that the consequences of what has gone down here are probably going to ring out for the rest of the season. I say no, that it's more speculation, because this isn't the kind of television program that has some kind of big emotional moment and just doesn't do anything for it for the rest of the run of it. You know, we're probably still going to be talking about the whole stuff with Midoriya and the weird tentacle stuff and the stuff with Shinzo and all that stuff going forward for the next few weeks. So, you know, this isn't going to be forgotten, even it is going to be a little bit downplayed as we move on to whatever the next big drastic threat is going to end up being. Another thing that I didn't like is the fact that I feel that Class B this week really were just pushed into the background like false time now. Like, it's really disappointing because one of the things that I had praised this entire arc of up until this point was the fact of how Class B were able to get some time in the spotlight, were able to spend some time getting to know them, spending some time getting to know their quirks and actually, you know, understanding them as people. And whilst we did get that quite a bit towards the start of this arc, as time has gone by we've seen less and less and less to this point where they just feel like they're just there to be minions. Aside from maybe Shinzo and Mamona or whatever the guy, the crazy blonde guy, you know, we haven't really had much screen time for the rest of them, which, you know, for some people may not be a big issue, and in the grand scheme of things, yet it ain't a big issue for me, but there's still a part of me that's sat here thinking, you know, we could have done some cool things here, and it's kind of disappointing that we haven't, but again, particularly bearing in mind some of the cool stuff we've done previously. And of course, I put my hands up and say, I got it wrong. I thought this probably would have ended up with a victory, with Class B winning it, so that overall it would probably end up translating to a draw overall, with both sides claiming the win when actually no one won it in the end. Of course, it would have been nice if that was the case, or maybe Class B did get the win, and it kind of a little bit more drama between the groups, and maybe Class A felt a little bit threatened, so they do some drastic, reckless stuff to try and get themselves back into being the top dogs. But you know what? In the grand scheme, this arc, and I'd hate to say it because people might take this the wrong way, it was just kind of a bit of a fluffy arc. It was just an arc that really existed to help cleanse the palate and set us up for stuff coming forward. Because let's face it, if you're binge watching all this, going into this arc, you've just come off the back of some really deep, heavy stuff. So this whole arc has been a lot more light, something you can actually breathe through and enjoy just the spectacle of it. No doubt the next arc is going to be a lot more deeper, darker, and a lot more emotional, but we'll soon see about that. What about you, dear listener? What did you think about this week's episode of My Hero Academia? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below, wherever you're watching this from, and I'll be sure to get back to you shortly, either directly in the comments themselves or towards the end of next week's video. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators these days. I hate to say it, but it is. Like, some weeks, you know, views won't count up on the videos properly, likes won't get processed even though you know that they've gone through, and of course the whole fact that YouTube can now monetize any video that they see fit means that certain videos of mine, particularly some of those that are becoming a little bit more popular recently, are at risk of, you know, kind of upsetting some people, thinking that I might have gone big-headed and decided to charge people effectively to view them. But, you know, that's a discussion for a whole other time, a whole other video. I hope you have a great weekend, wherever you have, a great week, a great year, a great whatever. Have a great time. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!